All right, good evening, my friends. And very special welcome to our engaged couples here tonight who have spent this weekend learning more about each other. And thank you for being attentive this weekend. So, who's heard this song? It's the hardest thing to give away and the last thing on your mind today. It always goes to those who don't deserve. It's the opposite of how you feel when the pain they caused is just too real. It takes everything you have just to say the word forgiveness. That's a song by Matthew West. It's a fabulous song. And my brothers and my sisters, forgiveness is at the core of Jesus' ministry. He commands us to love and forgive. And he tells us today, not 7 times, 77 times. That's infinite. That means you never stop forgiving. Forgiving. It's interesting, the word forgive has several derivations. From the German, it means to overgive or give too much. In the Latin, it means to give completely without reservation. And in the Greek, it means to give freely and unconditionally. All right, who has a problem with forgiving? Should I say, who doesn't have a problem with forgiving? That's because forgiving is not easy, is it? It's not so easy. It's easy to say. It's hard to do, isn't it? Because some of us have suffered great pain from others. And as Matthew West said, forgiveness is the last thing on our mind. It's the furthest thing from our mind. And especially, think about how difficult it is when it involves your spouse or your family or your friends. It is no coincidence today that when Peter asked about forgiving, what did he say? If my brother sins against me. He didn't say a friend. He didn't say an enemy. He didn't say just anybody. He said, my brother. That's someone very close. That's important to realize because the hardest people to forgive many times live with you. Isn't it right? For when they hurt you, it goes much further and cuts much deeper than when someone you don't know or someone you don't like hurts you. And my friends, that is why our readings today are so important for us to hear, because everybody here has some unforgiveness in their life. Everybody. Everybody has someone who has hurt you deeply, and you don't want to face it, and you don't want to forgive them. And he knows that. Jesus knows that. He knows our heart. So tonight, I want you to think about 3 things. There's 3 things. There's 3 elements of forgiveness that I want you to remember if you struggle. And that's everybody. We all struggle. 3 things. 1, forgiveness is a grace from God. 2, forgiveness is healing. And lastly, forgiveness can lead to reconciliation. So first, forgiveness is a grace from God. It is a grace we must seek from God because our human strength, we can't muster it. We need something stronger than what we do inside. It's said that it is not on our forgiveness that healing depends, only on God. Because that's when we forgive, the love of God comes into us. Remember what he said? I will forgive you as you forgive others. Pope Francis said, when you're willing to forgive other people with an open heart, then God's forgiveness will enter your heart to the same degree. My friends, the source of forgiveness, it's not in us. It's only in the heart of God. And that's where you have to look for it. You have to seek that grace from God. The second thing is forgiveness is essential for our own healing. Because when we're hurt, there's all kinds of emotions. Sirach said them, right? In the book of Sirach, anger, wrath, vengeance, hate. You know, we treat these, they're like protective armor, aren't they? We surround ourselves from either future abuse or more anger from these people. It is said, I love it, I kind of love it, unforgiveness is a spiritual stroke, because it blocks the flow of healing. It blocks and clogs our spiritual arteries so that love can no longer flow in our body. In fact, in the gospel, it says the unforgiving servant will be handed over to the torturer. You know who the torturer is? Us. We're self-torture. That's what it does. We too are handed over to the torturer. And the torturer is your own mind, your own heart, and your own spirit. Anger and resentment are not a cure for our wounded heart. We must seek healing. Lastly, forgiveness frees our heart from that resentment. It can. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you excuse. It doesn't mean they were right. It doesn't mean you're going to be a doormat for someone to continue to hurt you. Forgiveness is an unselfish act of love. It's a freedom. It's healing. If you want to be set free from the hurts of the past, you have to start that healing process, and it starts with forgiveness. Lastly, forgiveness can lead to reconciliation. I said can. Did you hear that? I didn't say it does. Because when people hurt us, what is damaged? When your spouse hurts you, what is damaged? Trust. That is something that does not repair itself on its own. Forgiveness starts the process, but guess who has to finish it? The other person. You have to be able to regain your trust. And it is again based on grace. But trust is built on works. They have to do the work. They must re-earn the trust. And it takes a lot of work to do that, as you know. But if you allow it, it can lead to reconciliation. But you got to take the first step. You got to at least begin, if you want to take that forgiveness. In those cases, it doesn't mean if that person continues to abuse you, wake up. That trust is going to be real hard, and maybe that trust can never be rebuilt. But if you want to have a chance of reconciliation, it's got to start with you. Then they have to go to work. So, as you think about that, forgiveness, a grace from God, it's healing, and it can lead to reconciliation. There's a story that I want you to just think about this week. Think about today. So there was a priest called to a hospital to anoint this man was dying. And the nurse said to the priest, he's Catholic, but he keeps screaming every night, God, please forgive me. So the priest entered the room, and the man was rude. I don't need you. I don't want you. I don't want to see you. You can't do anything for me. No one can forgive me. So the priest, he wasn't offended. He took a seat, and he started talking about all kinds of stuff. And eventually, he asked the man, he said, tell me what's on your heart. Just tell me. So the man, now I'm going to cry. The man broke down crying, and he said, 35 years ago, I was driving a truck, and I was drunk, and I hit a car with a family of 4. The father, the mother, and the daughter were killed. The son survived. The man went to prison, and he swore that no one would ever forgive him, especially God. So, as the priest was listening, the priest began to cry. And he looked at him, and he said, my son, that little boy forgave you a long time ago. For you see, I was that little boy. If I can forgive you, God has already forgiven you. So my sisters and my brothers, forgiveness, you can see I have a problem with forgiveness too. Forgiveness is not easy. But Jesus, the way of being a Christian is not easy. When has it ever been easy for any of us? Tonight, I want you to reflect on someone who God will place in your heart to forgive. What do you want to be healed of? What do you want to be set free from? What do you ask God to say, let me get past this? Remember, it doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't excuse what they did. We don't forgive people because they deserve it. We forgive because we need healing. We need healing ourselves. And only God's grace will allow us to forgive and let go. My friends, let us each ask God, please give me the strength, give me the grace to let go of those hurts that are in my heart. And remember, always remember, to forgive is to set a prisoner free. And when you do, you will discover that prisoner that is set free is you.